This presentation is going to be about the life of Dr. Alfonso Ortiz Tirado. Right now, this week, the music festival in his honor will begin. And I want to start this presentation talking about the festival and its impact on my life. My first festival was in 2005 when I photographed the events with a number of friends in photography. But the first festival that Carol and I enjoyed was in 2006. We loved the folklorico dances and the many other performances that we were able to see. This was Daniel Villegas, who tragically later passed away. One of the best classical guitarists I have ever heard. We got his CD during that we saw in the festival. In the main Noches de Gala, they had presentations that we don't have anymore. This was music in the time of Shakespeare. Right now we seem to have beautiful music, but not that variety. The Tucson Boys Choir came in 2006, and a member of the foreign community, Dolores Parker, managed to get homestays for all the boys in the choir. Voz en Punto was a fantastic a cappella group. We saw them first in 2006, but they have come back many times. The group that changed my life the most was Alamos, an a cappella quartet from Holguin, Cuba. We saw them first in 2007. On the left is Ludwig, who is now in Tucson and very active in music. Ruben is in Cuba right now and doing well. He lives in Havana and performs with a music group there. To the right of me is Gustavo Asensio, who is in Hermosillo. He is one of the founders of the Hermosillo Children's Chorus. He has performed here in Alamos numerous times since that first performance. On the far right is Yacel Mendoza Patterson, who also lives in Tucson. I've been in contact with these musicians ever since they performed in 2007. In 2008, several of them were here, and we had a party at our home. Since they were involved in the festival, the party didn't begin until after 10, and we sang songs and talked until 2 a.m. It was the greatest party that we've ever had. Also, Yuri Hernandez was singing here that year. He was also from Holguin in Cuba. He's now in Europe and he's performing, and he has given concerts in Mexico and his native Cuba. Now, I mention that because the festival has been very important in our lives, and I kind of wanted to share that before we talk about Alfonso Ortiz Tirado. I know many of the people here, they say, oh, Alamos is ruined, all the chaos, and that's true, but that festival has been very important in our lives, and we kind of wish it was as it was 20 years ago, but we roll with it. Now, he was born, as I mentioned, January 24th, 1893, and he died in Mexico City in 1960. So he was a young man of 67 years old. This is his birth certificate. I'm not going to try to read it, but isn't that handwriting beautiful? I mean, penmanship in those days, it's amazing. But anyway, that's his birth certificate. Now, just briefly, he was the son of Dr. Alfonso Ortiz Bretes, who's here in town, and he worked out at the Hospital de Jesus out there behind where Catherine is, back over there. I don't know what it's called now. And it's been a wide range of things since it was the Hospital de Jesus. On the paternal side, he's a grandson of Vicente Ortiz, who was a municipal president Alamos, and I was in City Hall yesterday at the Galleria Presidentes, and I realized we don't have a picture of him at all. So there are about 20 Presidentes that we're still looking to find a picture of so we can project them in the gallery. On the maternal side, his uncle, I'll skip, was Carlos Rodrigo Ortiz Redes, who was governor of Sonora, and the youngest governor, as it says, in 1881. And the interesting thing, I think, is that he resigned within 2 years. It was a political thing. And he resigned and never had any future in politics after that. And then also he's a distant cousin of Alvaro Obregón, El Presidente, and Benjamin Hill Solido. Okay, you can read all of this is in the museum, just 2 pictures that shows everything. They have a room for him so you can see it there. A little bit about Carlos Ortiz Redes, and the new jail was designed in the early 1880s when he was governor, but it wasn't ever built because he resigned and it never happened. A new design came, the one current design on Guadalupe Hill was in 1888, and the jail was constructed then a year later in 1889. Now, since we know these dates, it's easier for us to put a date onto pictures, historic pictures that we find. Was the market there? Was the jail there, if it's an overview? This is his father, Alfonso Ortiz Redes, and he practiced medicine here in Alamos for 15 years. In 1896, he moved his practice from Alamos to Culiacan. I assume the whole family moved to Culiacan. Alfonso Ortiz Tirado would have been only 3 years old. But it could be that he practiced there, but the family, the house was still here in Alamos. He died in 1898 at age 45. And after he died, a year later, the family went to Mexico City to be with family of his mother on his mother's side. And so even though he's considered a native son, he really was only here a few years. Now, I have a picture here of Otilia Urrea de Figueroa because she wrote a book, and Bev Kruchek interviewed her in 1990 when she came back. And she said, that it's well, you can see it. She was sad to see one house mistakenly identified as the boyhood home of Dr. Alfonso Ortiz Tirado. Says he was a doctor like his father and a distant relative on the Solido side, a relative of hers. But the Ortiz Tirado home was the one next to our hotel. She was staying in the Tesoros. Well, does she mean across the street? We don't know. I looked on the Facebook page of Juan Carlos Olguin for everything I could find on the house of Ortiz Tirado and found nothing. I do know the house. Now, Ruth Acuna Rascon has bought the house and lives there now, which we call the Ortiz Tirado house. It was owned by Alcorn. He sold it to Bill Wilkerson and Hector Valencia in 1972. They had it for 20 years. Notable events happened there. They had these huge New Year's parties every year, etc. They left and went to California in the mid-90s. It was then purchased by Bud Harvey's parents. They eventually passed away. Then it was Bud, and then Bud marries Judy, and now Bud has passed away and Judy sold the house. Now we know that history of the house. Before any foreigners were involved, we don't have very many records. So that's something for us to investigate. Now, when he got to Mexico City, he made his singing debut as a child. His sisters were excellent musicians. Sarah, his sister Sarah, was in concerts with him, and we have pictures of her back here in Alamos in the 1940s. And so they had Sarah was a mezzo soprano, and Maria Luisa was a soprano. But there was another soprano supposed to show up at an event, and they didn't show up. So they got Ortiz Tirado, who was like 8 or 9 years old. He sang the part. brought down the house, and his career started. Now, he started studying, or he graduated from his study of medicine. He had medicine and also was studying in the School of Music. But he graduated as a surgeon in 1919, and he worked as an orthopedic surgeon. But at the same time, he was studying music. I have a picture of his music teacher, Jose Eduardo Pierson, and Jose Eduardo is very famous. A number of 19th or 20th century Mexican musicians studied from him there in Mexico City, and including Agustin Lara, and I'll talk more about Agustin Lara. He started doing concerts in 1920. He sang on a radio station which later became the powerful XEB broadcasting company. And he, for medical reasons, he traveled to the USA in 1920. And while in the USA, he performed at nightclubs and events and got a little extra money from his music. Anyway, he had the operatic roles, and I'm not going to put too much in it, but the Elixir of Love, the Donizetti masterpiece, was one that he sang many times in opera, the first time in 1928 with Consuelo Escobar and then David Silva. And then later he was in Massenet's Manon, and he sang in that opera by Jules Massenet many times. And his vocal success led to numerous operatic roles, including Puccini's Madame Butterfly, Pagliacci, and other famous operas of the time. He sang in Europe, he sang in Mexico City, he sang in South America, and he was kind of one of the most famous musicians, especially in Latin America. Also, the Barber of Seville, we've got on that, he sang on the Rossini masterpiece, and also with Consuelo Escobar and another soprano, Isabel Soria, who was Rosina in that. In 1929, he then, of course, sang in Guadalajara, and like we say, the voice of Latin America. He made his first 78 RPM with two songs that I have never heard of anyway, Rosa and Lamento Gitano. So that's the sad gypsy. I don't know exactly what the gypsy and lament. But anyway, he stayed in the US for 18 months, singing and studying and practicing medicine. He had a successful audition with the Metropolitan Opera of New York, but he didn't take it because his first love was medicine. He would have had to given up medicine, so he came back to Mexico, and of course, he was married, had 3 children, but he started a children's hospital in Mexico City for the underprivileged, and that work also was in Central America. Now, I went to the South American tours. We have a little about that. Cuba in 1933, Costa Rica, back to Guadalajara. Oh, his film, Su Última Canción, the last song. He made 2 films, only 2 films, and the other he was singing music by Jules Massenet and Maria Grever. Now, I'll talk more about Maria Grever in just a minute too. But only 2 films were all that he made. His career continued in South America. 1934, he was in Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela, numerous concerts in Argentina. That's why I put a picture there of the tango. Sang at the Teatro Odeon, which is now the Teatro Colón. And he also sang in Uruguay at the concert, the Teatro 18 de Julio, which is now the Solís. In fact, those are 2 pictures of both of those, Teatro Colón on the left and the Teatro Solís on the right. These are significant places to sing. And he was there. Other countries, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Brazil, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and he also sang in Spain. I know he did, but I haven't been able to get any more specific information. Now, the first time he sang at the Palacio de Bellas Artes in Mexico City was 1939, which is unusual since he had been around the world before. And El Palacio de Bellas Artes, of course, is the great place to sing in Mexico. His last visit to Alamos was in the 1940s, and that's his sister, Sarah, and they're walking up the Kissing Alley. And so that was 1944, so he would have been, 51? No, 40? No, yeah. And that he was here. And apparently it's his last time. Now that's a little about his music career, and that's impressive. I mean, very few musicians contemporary could have credits like that. But that wasn't all that he was. He was a doctor. And he considered himself first a doctor. Now, he was the personal physician to Frida Kahlo. Now, not at the very beginning. We all know, if you've seen the movie, and we'll show it here in the History Association with Salma Hayek in Frida, 2002 movie. If you've watched that, you know all about Frida Kahlo or much. But in 1925, she was injured seriously and impaled in a bus accident and suffered so many injuries. A handrail went through her pelvis. It was, the rest of her life, she suffered from that. And yet she left a body of work that is unbelievable, those of us that follow the art of her. Now, he became her personal physician, I assume, in the 1940s, because by then she was a celebrity and he was a celebrity. He did surgeries, and I think on her spine in the 1940s. She had surgeries all the rest of her life, and it's a shame. This is more about his work with her. Her right leg was broken in 11 places. Her right foot was crushed and dislocated. Her collarbone was broken. Her shoulder was dislocated. And she had, and I have in the next paragraph, as an orthopedic surgeon, he could have been involved in operations on her spine in the 1920s, but probably not. It was probably much later. And she died at age 46 in 1954. And of course, she was married to Diego Rivera, and that's a whole different story. Now, this picture of Agustin Lara, you can see the scar. And I've seen that picture of the cigarette, and it's a great shot, but it shows that scar. And I didn't know until I researched it how he got the scar. And it was probably kind of an unpleasant situation. A jealous prostitute broke a beer bottle and went at his face. And he had the scar the rest of his life. But Ortiz Tirado was involved in, I don't know, in surgeries or what. And because Ortiz Tirado was involved and he was a famous singer, he helped Agustin Lara get his start in music, because Ortiz Tirado was involved with the radio station XEB, and he got Lara's music played there. Now, Agustin Lara was a tenor. I'm so partial to tenors, but he was a tenor, but primarily he's known as a songwriter. And you know and have heard many of his songs. Granada, for instance, is the famous one that every festival we hear Granada. When Carol and I checked into a hotel in Granada, I thought, boy, I'll show off to these people. So I started humming, Granada, and they just kind of looked at me strangely, because to them it wasn't that important, although the people of Granada did appreciate him. But he's a Mexican, see, he was Spanish, so it wasn't all that important anyway to them. Also, Agustin Lara was married to Maria Felix. And I look at that couple and I think about Julia Roberts and what's his name, the country guy? Lyle Lovett. It seems like nothing fits here. I think of the beauty of Maria Felix and, of course, Julia Roberts. Anyway, he was active from the 20s to the 50s, and it's kind of sad because his last 7 years of life, he couldn't sing. And he suffered from congestive heart failure, which is what I suffer from too. And probably they didn't have the medications then that they have now. But if you suffer from congestive heart failure, you know there is no way that you could perform a concert for an hour. Your heart simply can't do that. And even in my limited singing, it's had a real effect. But of course, I'm not Ortiz Tirado. So now, I put this online. Okay, it's up here now. Okay, Te Quiero Dijiste by Maria Greve. I gotta mention Maria Greve. Yeah, and she was the first woman composer to have any international success at all in Mexico. You think of Mexico, male-dominated society, arts and whatever, but she wrote this song, Te Quiero Dijiste, which you have heard and you will hear at every FOUT concert at some time. And so we're going to listen to it, but I want you to look at the last line of the third stanza, where he says, Si te quiero mucho, 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 mucho. You've heard that. I know you've heard that. Tanto como entonces, siempre hasta morir. Now, he does it different key and does it better. But anyway, now we're going to listen to that. Yeah, Chinita. Now we're going to do this Chinita, which was by Maria Greve, and beautiful song. He's singing with Pedro Vargas, who was a great tenor in the 50s, and he's been in movies, Vargas with Pedro Infante, and I'm hoping we can get one of those for the History Association. Okay, now we go back to one thing. Look at the words there, Chinita, which is the diminutive of a Asian girl, a Chinese girl, and so that's what the Chinita. The very first, it's written as Chinita, but all I'm here is China. But anyways, Chinita, and you can see whether in the English or Spanish you want to read. Listen, my darling, to that. Your sea-grown green shawl, the one, oops, let me make it larger. Let's do it. Okay, the shawl, the one that was made for you over there in Santa Maria, and of course it goes, Santa Maria, whatever the song, with its colors, I will shelter my love. Now it has loves, but I will shelter my love. And then he has Black Flag, that's not the spray. Your hair is the banner of my illusion. Your skirt has a reflection of my passion, red of blood and of love. Listen, sweet love of my soul, beneath the folds of your shawl, I want to live. I must live when it gets cold. Now, first of all, in this song, Pedro Vargas is singing the harmony part, and Alfonso Ortiz Tirado is doing the lead tenor part. And because Vargas had this beautiful, beautiful voice, but he didn't have the range that Ortiz Tirado had. And again, I'm the only one, I'm sure, interested, but I would love to sometime present about musicians in the 1950s in Mexico. It was truly a wonderful age, and you had all of these great people performing. Now, I don't think we'll do this one. What are we? No, we won't do it. Errol. Huh? Pregunta. Okay, pregunta.
Was it written for a Chinese woman? Because there were a lot more Chinese back then?
I think it was certainly a romantic song. I don't think it was written for a specific person. I think it was just a love song.
When were the Chinese expelled?
Well, from Sonora, they were expelled in 1930, and that would have been close to the time that it was written. But they were only expelled in Mexico in Sonora. And of course, this was national, international. So I don't think it relates to that. But of course, Asian, that's something these dolls from Asia people write about and enjoy. Anyway, this one, we won't sing it, but it's a good one, but it will be on the video if you do it. Now, what I've done here, I put his songs, and what I'm going to do is I'm making a video of the presentation. So these links will be on there. Now, you can't click on them, unfortunately, but you got it. You can copy it, put them on, and listen to the song. Now, these songs are those that I like, and the Serenata was the one that I attached to the Facebook and the YouTube that I have, and this another Maria Greber and then Lanka. Anyway, these are some of the songs, certainly more than you want. I mentioned about Spain. He wrote a song Toledo. He wrote a song Sevilla, as well as Granada. So he loved Spain. Yes.
So at the time he was singing, it wouldn't have been considered like we consider it now as an old time classical.
Oh no.
It was like what was current.
Yeah, it was current music, contemporary music at that time. And there's so many great songs, and you've heard many of them at different events. So yeah, he did opera, of course, so he did the classical, but all that I have here, I looked for just a couple of songs from Elixir of Love or, The Barber of Seville. They're impossible to find, those things. Him singing in an opera performance, I don't know how. Somebody smarter than I am or could probably find it. But you find his work all over YouTube, so that's not hard.
You said you missed how it used to be when it was a smaller scale local production. Are there advantages to how it's run now that you can appreciate?
Oh, yeah. We've got the best musicians internationally in the world that come in here. Not so much now. After the pandemic, it's been Sonora primarily. Before the pandemic, we had Paul Potts, who won in Britain's Let's Got Talent or whatever. We had him. We have had some wonderful performers that have come in here, but that were not international performers. I mentioned the group from Argentina. We used to have a lot of those. And after the pandemic, they kind of narrowed it down to Sonora, which is good because there's so many wonderful musicians in Sonora that don't have opportunities, and this is a great opportunity for them. Tomorrow, on Saturday in the church, is Nadia La Madrid, and she'll be singing. She's a soprano, and we saw her sing more than 10 years ago, and she was, when they had Carmen here in the street, she was in that. But she'll be singing again, and so I'll get to see her, and other people that come in that I've seen year after year, they'll be here. Okay, no other questions, that's it, okay. Yeah. Umberto, tell about the